All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the Pardoner's Tale. You met the Pardoner a little bit yesterday in the prologue to his tale. He is not the nicest person, although he is kind of honest, at least to the pilgrims, as he lets them know that he is very greedy and that he is willing to lie and cheat to get as much money as he can from the people he is trying to sell these indulgences or these pardons for their sins. It says, it's of three rioters I have to tell. And rioters are rowdy people, revelers, ne'er do wells, whatever you want to call them. So it's of three rioters I have to tell, who long before the morning service bell were sitting in a tavern for a drink. So, morning service, talking about church, they're already at the bar getting drunk. So, this shows us a little bit about our revelers or rioters. And as they sat, they heard the handbell clink before a coffin going to the grave. One of them called the little tavern knave and said, "Go and find out at once. Look spry, whose corpse is in that coffin passing by, and see you get the name correctly too." So, just as you know, they heard the handbell clink. Side note, in Chaucer's time, a bell was carried beside the coffin in a funeral procession. So, they knew when they heard the bell that there was a funeral procession going by. And so one of the guys at the bar tells the tavern knave, which is a serving boy who works there, to go find out who it was that has passed away. "Sir," said the boy, "no need, I promise you. 2 hours before you came here, I was told. He was a friend of yours in days of old, and suddenly last night the man was slain. Upon his bench, face up, dead drunk again. There came a privy thief, they call him Death, who kills us all round here, and in a breath he speared him through the heart. He never stirred." All right, so the boy said that it's an old friend of yours. He was passed out drunk. And then here comes the secretive thief. They call him Death. And so he said he speared him through the heart, so he never stirred. So that essentially the young kid here is personifying Death as having taken the guy. And we can say if he took him through the heart, he probably had a heart attack in his sleep and died. So even though he's personifying him here, they're going to take this more literally as we continue. He said, "And then Death went his way without a word. He's killed 1,000 in the present plague." Remember, medieval times, the bubonic plague killed at least a quarter of the population of Europe in the mid 14th century. So again, Death went around. He's killed 1,000 in the present plague. And, sir, it doesn't do to be too vague. If you should meet him, you had best be wary. Be on your guard with such an adversary. Be primed to meet him everywhere you go. That's what my mother said. It's all I know. So this poor young kid, he's telling him, my mom said, if you see Death, you better run the other way. And so he's telling them the same thing as his mother had told him. The publican, which is the innkeeper, the tavern owner, the publican joined in with, "By Saint Mary, what the child says is right. You'd best be wary. This very year he killed, in a large village a mile away, man, woman, serf at tillage, page in the household, children. All there were. Yes, I imagine that he lives round here. It's well to be prepared in these alarms. He might do you dishonor. Huh, God's arms." So just a few notes. So talking about the plague still, the tavern keeper is pretty much letting him know that he killed almost an entire village, everybody in it, including men, women, and children, and the page being the servant boy, and that they were all who died at this part. The writer said, "Is he so fierce to meet? I'll search for him by Jesus, street by street." God's blessed bones, I'll register a vow. Here, chaps, the three of us together now. Hold up your hands like me, and we'll be brothers in this affair, and each defend the others. And we will kill this traitor Death, I say. Away with him, as he has made away with all our friends. God's dignity. They made their bargain, swore with appetite, these three, to live and die for one another, as brother born might swear to his born brother. And up they started in their drunken rage, and made towards this village which the page and publican had spoken of before. Many and grisly were the oaths they swore, tearing Christ's blessed body to a shred. If we can only catch him, Death is dead. When they had gone not fully half a mile, just as they were about to cross a stile, they came upon a very old man who humbly greeted them and thus began. All right, so just as a recap, we're here. The three guys have decided they're going to work together and they're going to go kill Death. And so as they're heading out, they said they're getting ready to cross a stile, which is a stairway used to climb over a fence or wall. And this is where they greet this very poor old man, who humbly greeted them and thus began. God look to you, my lords, and give you quiet. To which the proudest of these men of riot gave back the answer, What, old fool? Give place. Why are you all wrapped up except your face? Why live so long? Isn't it time to die? The old fellow looked him in the eye and said, Because I never yet have found, though I have walked to India, searching round, village and city on my pilgrimage, one who could change his youth to have my age. And so my age is mine and must be still upon me for such time as God may will. Not even death, alas, will take my life. So, like a wretched prisoner at strife within himself, I walk alone and wait about the earth, which is my mother's gate, knocking with my staff from night to noon and crying, Mother, open to me soon. Look at me, mother, won't you let me in? See how I wither, flesh and blood and skin. Alas, when will these bones be laid to rest? Mother, I would exchange for that were best the wardrobe in my chamber standing there. And so notice when he's talking about earth and mother's gate, this whole part here where he's reaching out to mother, this addresses the earth as his mother. So think about Mother Earth, Mother Nature, why he would be begging Earth to take him. It really comes down to the fact that he wants to die. He wants to be buried in the ground. And yet here he is still alive, but he yearns for death because he's so old. So long for yours, I for a shirt of hair to wrap me in. So a rough shirt made of animal hair worn to punish oneself for one's sins. She has refused her grace, whence comes the pallor of my withered face. So I look like this, and I'm really old because, God has deemed that I should still be alive, and that's why. But it dishonored you when you began to speak so roughly, sir, to an old man, unless he had injured you in word or deed. It says in Holy Writ, as you may read, Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head and honor it. So the gray-haired, your elderly, honor your elderly. And therefore be it said, Do no more harm to an old man than you, being now young, would have another do when you're old, if you should live till then. And so may God be with you, gentlemen, for I must go whither I have to go. So here's the picture, the old man. By God, the gambler said, You shan't do it. You shan't do so. You don't get off so easy, by St. John. I heard you mention just a moment gone a certain traitor Death, who singles out and kills the fine young fellows hereabout. And you're his spy, by God, you wait a bit. Say where he is, or you shall pay for it. By God and by the holy sacrament, I say you've joined together by consent to kill us younger folk, you thieving swine. Well, sirs, he said, if it be your design to find out death, turn up this crooked way towards that grove. I left him there today under a tree, and there you'll find him waiting. He isn't one to hide for all your prating. You see that oak? He won't be far to find, and God protect you that redeemed mankind, aye, and amend you. Thus that ancient man. So he said, you mentioned that death, you were looking for death, and that death wouldn't have you. Where is he? And so the man tells him, look up the crooked way. Now, the crooked way is a biblical allusion, and it goes against the idea of living the straight and narrow path. So in the Bible, the moral and right and just way of living versus the crooked way that will lead you to sin. And so he is telling these guys to go up the crooked way because, they are out to commit a sin of murder in this case. But they are crooked anyway. You can just tell how the way they treat the old man and how they vow to kill death. At once the three young riders began to run and reached the tree, and there they found a pile of golden florins on the ground. And florins are coins. So they found a huge pile of gold coins. New coined, 8 bushels of them, as they thought. No longer was it death those fellows sought, for they were all so thrilled to see the sight. The florins were so beautiful and bright that down they sat beside the precious pile. The wickedest spoke first after a while. Brothers, he said, you listen to what I say. I'm pretty sharp, although I joke away. It's clear that fortune has bestowed this treasure to let us live in jollity and pleasure. Light come, light go, we'll spend it as we ought. God's precious dignity. Who would have thought this morning was to be our lucky day? So he's saying, fate brought us here, and we are so lucky to have found all this gold. If one could only get the gold away back to my house, or else to yours perhaps, for as you know, the gold is ours, chaps. We'll all be at the top of fortune, hey? But certainly it can't be done by day. People would call us robbers, a strong gang. So our own property would make us hang. No, we must bring this treasure back by night, some prudent way, and keep it out of sight. And so, as a solution, I propose we draw for lots and see the way it goes. The one who draws the longest, lucky man, shall run to town as quickly as he can to fetch us bread and wine, but keep things dark, while 2 remain in hiding here to mark our heap of treasure. If there's no delay, when night comes down, we'll carry it away, all 3 of us, wherever we have planned. So essentially, the guy is saying, people will think that we stole this, so we can't just go, whistling in the middle of the town with all this extra gold coins. We're going to have to sneak this back. And so the plan is we're going to draw straws. They say that they're going to draw lots, but they're going to draw to see who gets the longer stick. Somebody's going to go to town and get supper, the cheese, the wine, and then the other 2 are just going to watch over. And then when the other one comes back, they'll eat and they'll wait until nightfall and take the gold back to town. He gathered lots and hid them in his hand, bidding them draw for where the luck should fall. It fell upon the youngest of them all, and off he ran at once towards the town. As soon as he had gone, the first sat down, and thus began a parley, a discussion, or a conference. And thus began a parley or discussion with the other. You know that you can trust me as a brother, Now let me tell you where your profit lies. You know our friend has gone to get supplies, and here's a lot of gold that is to be divided equally amongst us three. Nevertheless, if I could shape things thus so that we shared it out, the two of us, wouldn't you take it as a friendly act? So already the guy has just left and they're having a conversation about how they can cut him out of the winnings here, how they can cut him out of the deal. But how, the other said, he knows the fact that all the gold was left with me and you. What can we tell him? What are we to do? It is a bargain, said the first, or no? For I can tell you in a word or so what's to be done to bring the thing about. Trust me, the other said. You needn't doubt my word. I won't betray you. I'll be true. Well, said his friend, you see that we are two, and two are twice as powerful as one. Now look, when he comes back, get up in fun to have a wrestle. Then, as you attack, I'll up and put my dagger through his back, while you and he are struggling as in game. Then draw your dagger too, and do the same. Then all this money will be ours to spend, divided equally, of course, dear friend. Then we can gratify our lust and fill the day with dicing at our own sweet will. Thus these two miscreants agreed to slay the third and youngest, as you heard me say. So, yes, they're already making these ideas. Just act like you're playing around, and then I'll stab him, and then you stab him, and then we'll just both split it between the two of us. And then we can go gambling, talking about with dicing at our own sweet will. We can go gamble with the dice. And then heading back to the outside frame where the partner's telling the story, he said, thus these two miscreants, these two villains, these evildoers, agreed that they're going to murder the youngest when he comes back with the wine and the food. The youngest, as he ran towards the town, kept turning over, rolling up and down within his heart the beauty of those bright new florins, saying, Lord, to think I might have all that treasure to myself alone. Could there be anyone beneath the throne of God so happy as I then should be? And so the fiend, our common enemy, the devil, Satan, was given power to put it in his thought that there was always poison to be bought, and that with poison he could kill his friends. To men in such a state the devil sends thoughts of this kind, and has a full permission to lure them on to sorrow and perdition. So now that the devil has gotten in this young man's head, it says the devil also has permission to lure them into damnation and hell. For this young man was utterly content to kill them both and never to repent, never to say he's sorry. And on he ran. He had no thought to tarry. Came to the town, found an apothecary, and said, Sell me some poison if you will. I have a lot of rats I want to kill, and there's a polecat too about my yard that takes my chickens and it hits me hard. But I'll get even, as is only right, with vermin that destroy a man by night. So you can see that he heads off and he's in a hurry and he goes to the apothecary. Now, the apothecary would be the person who makes like your drugs, potions, things like that. So think of it like a pharmacy. So he goes into the pharmacy and he says he wants some poison because he's got a bunch of rats and some big animals he wants to get rid of. And so he names a lot of them because he wants a lot of poison. But then he says, but I'll get even as is only right with vermin that destroy a man by night. This is foreshadowing. So remember, they're not going to leave out until night. And so he's going to go back to find them so they can eat dinner and then bring the money back. But we know this is dramatic irony. What he doesn't know is that they are planning to destroy him when he returns, even as he's trying to murder them. The chemist answered, I have a preparation which you shall have, and by my soul's salvation, if any living creature eat or drink a mouthful ere he has time to think, though he took less than makes a grain of wheat, you'll see him fall down lying at your feet. Yes, die he must, and in so short a while you'll hardly have the time to walk a mile. The poison is so strong, you understand. So even though this young boy is asked for rats and the polecat and the chickens, um, the chemist, the alchemist, turns around and lets him know that, he knows what he's up to. He said, any living creature, but, he's going to be dying very soon. This cursed fellow grabbed into his hand the box of poison, and away he ran into a neighboring street and found a man who lent him 3 large bottles. He withdrew and deftly poured the poison into 2. He kept the third one clean as well he might, for his own drink, meaning to work all night, stacking the gold and carrying it away. And when this rioter, this devil's clay, had filled his bottles up with wine, all 3 back to rejoin his comrades sauntered he. So he's got everything together. He's got the wine, he's got the food, he's heading back. He's got 2 bottles poisoned, ready to kill the other 2. And it's interesting that they use the devil's clay as an appositive to rename this young guy, because he's being molded to do what the devil would want him to do, which is to take and kill these 2 men. Why make a sermon of it? Why waste breath? Exactly in the way they'd planned his death, they fell on him and slew him 2 to 1. Then said the first of them when it was done, now for a drink, sit down and let's be merry, for later on there'll be the corpse to bury. And as it happened, reaching for a sup, he took a bottle full of poison up and drank. And his companion, nothing loath, drank from it also. And they perished both. So very quickly, like he said, why waste breath? He tells everything that happens in this one stanza. Why waste breath? To the 2 killed the 1, and then they drank the poison, and then both of them died as well. There is in Avicenna's long relation concerning poison and its operation. Trust me, no ghastlier section to transcend what these 2 wretches suffered at their end. Thus these 2 murderers received their due, so did the treacherous young poisoner too. So if you see Avicenna's long relation, it's a medical text written by an 11th century Islamic physician. It includes descriptions of various poisons and their effects. So this allusion just goes back to the idea of the poison and how much they suffered before they died. O cursed sin, O blackguardly excess, O treacherous homicide, O wickedness, O gluttony that lusted on and diced. Dearly beloved, God forgive your sin and keep you from the vice of avarice. My holy pardon frees you all of this, provided that you make the right approaches, that is, with sterling rings or silver brooches. Bow down your heads under this holy bull. Come on, you women, offer up your wool. I'll write your name into my ledger. So, into the bliss of heaven you shall go. For I'll absolve you by my holy power, you that make offering clean as at the hour when you were born. That, sirs, is how I preach. So we see we've gone back to the outer framework here. This is now the pardoner addressing his fellow pilgrims. And it's almost as if he has fallen straight into his cell pitch, right? And so that's it. This is greed. If you want to be freed of all your greed, God forbid, though, that you should die and like these men in the midst of their greed and have to suffer hell's damnations. If you will give me your sterling, your money, your valuables, I will make you as sin-free as the day you were born, so you can go straight to heaven and not have to worry. And Jesus Christ, soul's healer, I, the leech, the physician of every soul, grant pardon and relieve you of sin, for that is best. I won't deceive you. One thing I should have mentioned in my tale, dear people, I have some relics in my bale. And so for the relics, these are the remains of a saint. It could be their bones, their hair, or clothing. In medieval times, many relics were counterfeit. And so you can about pretty much bet that this partner's relics are also counterfeit. So they're not actually real. Sorry. So now, again, talking about a sales pitch, he's already trying to sell the relics that his counterfeit relics that he has in his bag. So I have some relics in my bale and pardons too, as full and fine, I hope, as any in England, given me by the Pope. If there be one among you that is willing to have my absolution for a shilling, so for money, a coin worth 12 pence, devoutly given come, and do not harden your hearts, but kneel in humbleness for pardon, or else receive my pardon as we go. You can renew it every town or so, always provided that you still renew each time and in good money what is due. So it's not that you have to repent of your sins and not do them again, he says. If you keep giving me money, hey, you can do whatever you want this whole trip. And every so often we can just stop and you can renew the certificate by giving me more money. And again, have your sins forgiven. It is an honor to you to have found a partner with his credentials sound, who can absolve you as you ply the spur in any accident that may occur. So he's saying, be careful. Anything can happen. We might get in an accident on this very trip. For instance, we are all at fortune's beck. Your horse may throw you down and break your neck. What a security it is to all to have me here among you and at call, with pardon for the lowly and the great, when soul leaves body for the future state. And I advise your host here to begin, the most enveloped of you all in sin. Come forward, host, you shall be the first to pay, and kiss my holy relics right away. Only a groat. Come on, unbuckle your purse. And so the first person he's begging is the host, the innkeeper. The host, he's saying that you need to be the first one because you're the one who's the most enveloped, the most overcome, the most heavily laden in sin. And so that, he said, only a groat, a silver coin worth 4 pence. So he's kind of upping the ante as he goes through. But this ends the partner's tale. The idea that it ends on the idea of unbuckling your purse and giving him money is pretty fitting for this guy. But overall, you're really seeing here how the irony behind what is said versus the actions. You would expect people of the church to behave in a godly fashion, to try to avoid sin and try to avoid, especially the deadly sins like gluttony and adultery and all of these things that they're guilty of. So that's what creates the irony. You would expect people of the church to want to care for others, not to use them for their own personal benefit. So all of this adds to that theme that Charles was trying to get to, that corruption does not belong in religious stations.